it's an interesting thing to try to sort out, but I think I had two interests, I realized, in historically speaking, and one was in some ways very political too, and that was in the midst of the civil rights movement. I finished high school in 1959, began university same year at University of North Carolina. The civil rights movement was just breaking out. Greensboro sit-ins, so on and so forth. So part of it really was to, if I was going to argue with these, with my friends and other people in the South, I had to know the history. You know, what happened during Reconstruction? It was Reconstruction the way legend or the old accounts of the history of Reconstruction had it? And of course the answer was no. So that was one source of direct political ammunition, I suppose. The second one, I've always been fascinated, not so much through classes, but just in general in the 50s, by Nazi Germany. What happened, the rise and fall, I think obviously some connections, but things having to do with race, anti-Semitism, and you can put those two together and say it's the strange fate or the tragic fates of defeated people, and how that works out subsequently historically. So those two things, and the third dimension would be I had really good teachers in university at North Carolina in intellectual history. Okay. People that didn't publish much, but they were really good. So that my interest in intellectual history and history of ideas then is a kind of thing that mediates or is in addition to those concrete focus on Germany and the South. Yeah.
So what were some of the, when you were in college, were there any books in particular that you were influenced by?
Well, I think that in connection with the South, which would be in some ways the most obvious, but perhaps the most interesting, the two books, well, three writers. One would be Van Woodward, Strange Career, Jim Crow, and Burden of Southern History. Those were just getting mileage, just getting momentum going. They'd been out a while, but Cash's Mind to the South, which Woodward always saw as quite antithetical to his interests and approach, but we all read both of them and appreciate them. And the third source on the South was Faulkner, the fiction. So those were the kinds of things. And I did an undergraduate honors thesis on Faulkner and Southern history, and which sort of was the basis of my second book, A Southern Renaissance. So the undergraduate thesis got turned into that book in essence. The German was, it's harder to say. I did read some Hannah Arendt as an undergraduate and early graduate student, and I suppose my interest in her as a thinker and as a not only just political but historical thinker comes from that experience. But I had an extraordinarily rich undergraduate education and time with fellow students. It was a situation where the cliche is right that you learned as much from your fellow students as you do from your professors, and I did.
Did some of the undergrads that you were in college with, did they go on to work in history?
I had a colleague, a fellow student, Henry Mayer, who went out to Berkeley, got involved with the free speech movement, but eventually he wrote a biography or political biography of Patrick Henry and also one of Garrison, then died tragically, not in an accident, but heart attack about 10 years ago or so. There were several other people some people went into law and journalism and everything, but I think Henry was the only one who directly went into history. I think the other thing was, it shows the kind of vagaries of majors and what you go into, but at that particular time, several of us had similar interests, and in different circumstances, we might have gone into a philosophy department or an English department. We all history at Carolina in that period seemed to be more accommodating of a variety of interests. One of the, I suppose, indications of the richness of the undergraduate education was that during my years at North Carolina, 1959 to 63, I heard three of the great civil rights and race men in mid-century or in the 20th century, and that was I heard Martin Luther King in the spring of 1960, I think after he had been to Shaw, the meeting there when SNCC was set up. So it was in the basement of the First Baptist Church, not at a big amphitheater or anything, but probably 50 or 75 people there. It'd be the last time King would get that few people.
I think that was when Sam Hill, the historian Sam Hill, I think was
He
part of that.
I know Sam.
Yeah.
And I got to know him at Carolina, but I don't know. In fact, I think I would have been it was my freshman year, so I probably didn't know Sam yet. Senior year, at the other end, Malcolm X came to Carolina and spoke, and his main address was sort of mechanical, like you'd read about communist leaders or would give the party line. Well, he gave the party line, and then it does fit accounts of Malcolm when it got to questions. He was really good. He kind of took off, and he came alive. You could feel that restlessness that he was chafing at the bit there. And the third thing was going to North Carolina Central. Well, it was called North Carolina College then, in Durham, Black College, and hearing James Baldwin read. So that's in retrospectively, it's quite a haul. And Robert Penn Warren came through and read, and Dwight McDonald spoke Carolina Symposium. So again, it's always impressed me that one of the main parts of undergraduate or any education is who comes to universities as visiting speakers, not just the classroom.